Welcome to my Days of Our Lives official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. A Elysian visit stuns Abe and Paulina while John, Steve and Ava find Tripp and Wendy, but are they too late? In her room, Holly eventually looks at the DMs Tate's been transferring through Teresa's phone. He asks her to call him through the app. Holly looks equivocal. In his room at the halfway house, Tate excitedly sees that Holly's read the communication. Now she just needs to call him. Leaning her head on Tripp's shoulder in the beer tank, Wendy struggles to keep her eyes open. Through labored breaths, she tells him they should get married in Kauai, but she loved their promises there. Inversely weak, Tripp agrees. After further marriage talk, Tripp prays. They both fall silent and close their eyes. Sitting side by side, Wendy rests her head on Tripp's shoulder in the beer tank. A drop cloth drapes over their shoulders. Further, John overhears the Verity at the airport. Ava struggles with her conditions as a furious John and Steve return. They free her as they explain how fluently they knocked out her mugs. Ava tearfully relays that Clyde said Tripp is as good as dead. Steve wouldn't accept that. Ava blames herself, but Steve yells at her to shut up. They don't have time for that. They need to find Tripp before it's too late. Harris strolls into the police station after checking out of the sanitarium against medical advice. He couldn't just do nothing. Rafe and Jada explain they've an APB out on Goldman and they researching her place. Bathed in white light in her sanitarium bed, Paulina gapes ahead wide-eyed. Holding her hand, a surprised Abe turns. A person in a white shirt stands before them. Further details on the first new day cleaner in 25 times Abe prays at Paulina's sanitarium bedside as a white light glows. Paulina opens her eyes and sees someone standing before them. Abe turns. "Hello, Abraham," the figure, whose face we don't see, says as she plays with her marriage ring. Abe prodigies if he's hallucinating. Paulina recognizes her as Lexi, who she's seen filmland of. Abe recalls reading in his dossier that Lexi was his first woman. And that she failed times agone. Assuming she's there to take Paulina, Abe exclaims he wouldn't let that be. As Holly considers her phone in her bedroom, Tate climbs up to her window. Once outside, he embraces her and tells her how important he missed her. After making sure she's okay after her coma, he grabs her face and kisses her. When they pull piecemeal, they awkwardly beam at each other. Holly didn't know what to say to him ahead, but she does now. "I am sorry, Tate. I am really, really sorry." Tate holds Holly's face as he leans in for a kiss. With unrestricted eyes, she tilts her face toward him. Further, Blake Barris warns of waking the sleeping giant at Ava's apartment. John calls Rafe to tell him about Wendy and Tripp's hostage videotape. As Steve sends it over, he, John, and Ava rewatch it. Steve realizes Wendy, who stands behind Tripp in the videotape, is using sign language. He translates the sign for beer. When John deduces they're in a pop tank, the triad heads out to the abandoned brewery by the field. In Paulina's sanitarium room, Lexi twists her marriage band as she reminds Abe that he saw her in heaven. He remembers that and recounts their life together. He also remembers his life with Paulina and tells her they've so important life to live. Paulina passes out, and the examiner goes off. Abe shouts, "No!" Sitting at the bottom of her bed, Holly scrunches her face at Tate. Further days dangles several deaths in her room. Holly tells Tate how shamed she's of taking the capsules. She should have heeded to him. Realizing she doesn't know what happened to him, he explains that EJ arrested him for her overdose. She's so sorry. Tate asks her to tell them the capsules were hers, and he'd nothing to do with it. She can't. Watching Tripp's videotape at the station, Harris says the evidence is each there against Clyde. And with Goldman as the operative, it points to a felonious conspiracy. He winces in pain, but assures Rafe he's forfeiture. Harris calls the captivity to check for communication between Clyde and Goldman, but they re too busy dealing with the chemical slip. Meanwhile, Jada pulls Goldsman's GPS word and discovers the brewery address listed over a dozen times. Rafe and Harris head out while Jada stays behind to stay on top of Statesville and search for further word on Goldman. At the brewery, John and Steve open the tank and begin CPR on Wendy and Tripp. Ava frenetically calls 911. Defeated, John says he's got nothing on Wendy, and Steve snoots in anguish over Tripp. Rafe and Harris arrive on the scene as John and Steve continue CPR. With Abe at her sanitarium bedside, a nanny checks Paulina's palpitation. Paulina's eyes are closed. Further, could Paulina still bear one of these characters' hearts? At the sanitarium, Lexi assures Abe she's not there to take Paulina. She's there to help him help his woman. She tells him to feel the love inside his heart and transfer it to Paulina. He just has to believe what's in his heart. Abe repeats the word believe as he rubs Paulina's casket. The white light dims. The nanny runs into Paulina's room and the examiner stops telephoning. Paulina's breathing and awake. Astonished, Abe says, "I believe." In Holly's room, Tate angrily tells her how terrible effects are for him at the halfway house. He needs his life back. She agrees to tell them the medicines weren't his, but she can't admit they were hers. Tate doesn't suppose that's enough. She can't tell the verity and fail her mama, who has been through too important recently. Tate can't believe she's going to immolate him to keep up appearances. He begs her to help him. Feel about Tate and Holly's bittersweet reunion on Days of Our Lives. Has it really been since New Year's Eve that Days of Our Lives suckers have seen Tate and Holly in the same room? Since Holly's overdose, she was in a coma in Salem, also in Italy at a special medical installation, and also back in Salem at the DiMera Manse where she woke up. Meanwhile, Tate was arrested and transferred to Statesville, also a juvenile recovery installation, and also eventually a halfway house within Salem city limits. Independently, the two have been through a lot. Their reunion in the Monday, March 11, 2024, occasion was a long time coming. The bittersweet reunion, as if this were passing straight out of Romeo and Juliet. Tate, Jamie Martin Man, appeared outside Holly's, Ashley Puzimas, window and, for the moment, nothing was the wiser. Holly and Tate participated a grand reunion in which Tate swept Holly up in a kiss. Who knew he'd that in him? Effects were looking up for the couple until they got into the nitty-gritty of what happened the night Holly OD'd. But also what happened since she fell into a coma. Obviously, EJ, Daniel Feuerriegel, and Nicole, Ariane Zucker, haven't been forthcoming with the details. Incontinently, Holly apologized for not hearkening to Tate that cataclysmal night. She allowed. The medicines were inoffensive and she took the medicines despite his warnings. Tate realized Holly didn't know the full story. So he told her everything, that EJ criticized Tate for giving her the bejeweled anodynes and had him arrested for medicine possession. Latterly, he was transferred to jail, the juvie installation, and the halfway house. Also, he demanded her help to clear his name so he could go home. Unfortunately, Holly said she couldn't give him what he wanted. However, it meant her mama would be so disappointed, not just in her but in herself, if she did. She'd suppose she failed as a mama. After all, Holly eavesdropped Nicole tell EJ as much. She say anything but admit to those medicines being hers. As Tate get to know further about Jamie Martin Man then, continued to maintain his case with Holly, someone was at the door. Salemites escape death. A lot of major stories are about to come to satisfying consummations on Days of Our Lives, with spoilers for March 11th to March 15th, 2024 teasing positive issues for utmost Salemites in jeopardy. Several Salemites at death's door as Tripp, Lucas Adams, and Wendy, Victoria Grace, fought for their lives. Ava, Tamara Braun, Steve, Stephen Nichols, and John, Drake Hodgson, planned Clyde's, James Reed, escape. But it may have been too late, because just as Clyde broke free, the two hostages ran out of air in each other's grasp. At the sanitarium, PAULINA'S, Jackie Harry, loved Bones.